This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Andrea Tantaros, Kirsten Powers, political commentator and national spokesman for the Libre Initiative, Rachel Campos, Duffy, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, Fox News correspondent Peter Ducey. He also just hosted the Fox News special, The Man Who Killed Osama bin Laden, and he is outnumbered today for the first time.
And that's a good thing, right?
Welcome to the couch.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank
did
you
you get any sleep last night?
Not a lot, because I had seen this special a couple times before it aired. But you can't go to sleep when you know that the whole world is seeing this thing that you've been working on for more than a year for the first time.
And then you were up for Fox and Friends this morning.
I was, and here I am now.
It was a great special, and we'll be talking about it later in the hour.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that I got to stop by here before I went back down to Washington.
And you may be our tallest one lucky guy, Sandra.
We were discussing.
Is there chalk on the wall on the way out? Can I?
Have to keep track.
For the record, how tall are you?
I'm 6'5", barefoot.
Wow. Maybe our tallest one lucky guy yet.
All right.
All right, well, we begin with a controversy so hot Republicans are considering holding hearings on it. And it begins with the guy who just couldn't seem to help himself. The Obamacare architect caught on video last year admitting the White House preyed on the, quote, stupidity of the American voter to get the law passed. He said it was slip of the tongue, but he wasn't caught just once or twice, for that matter. A third video of MIT economist Jonathan Gruber has now surfaced. This one from 2012. Listen.
We just tax the insurance companies. They pass on higher prices. That offsets the tax break we get. It ends up being the same thing. It's a very clever, basic exploitation of the lack of economic understanding of the American voter.
While the White House appears to disavow Gruber's choice of words, Press Secretary Josh Earnest firing back at Republicans when pressed by our own Ed Henry.
To suggest that voters are stupid and that's how you passed it, you don't feel bad about that at all?
I disagree vigorously with that assessment, I think is what I would say. I think the fact of the matter is this was a very difficult undertaking. But ultimately, this is a law that has had significant benefits for millions of people. It is Republicans who have been less than forthright and transparent about what their proposed changes to the Affordable Care Act would do in terms of the choices that are available to middle-class families.
Peter, what do you make of the response from the White House there?
Can you ask me that a little bit slower? Because I am a voter, and I think some people think that means that I'm stupid.
Yeah.
What's the White House supposed to say? They don't have any elections coming up anytime soon. The guy who lives there isn't on the ballot. But they can't make it seem like they duped the whole world.
Which is, Andrea, isn't that what happened here? I mean, didn't they deliberately deceive the American people, as Gruber states in those 3 videos that he calls slip of the tongue?
They did, and they revealed what most liberals think about Americans, that they are stupid. But I have to ask, Republicans need their heads examined on this one. They're holding hearings on Gruber saying that the American people are stupid. That is exactly what they should not be holding hearings on, things that we already know. Sandra, as you know, the Supreme Court decided to hear the case of whether or not the subsidy law was written so that if states didn't take up an exchange, they wouldn't get the subsidies.
Right.
If Republicans were really savvy, they would haul Gruber up. They would ask him under oath, was that you in the video? And did you intentionally write the law, which he says in the video, that way? If he admits that, Sandra, under oath, Justice Kennedy would have a very hard time arguing different. And if the Supreme Court overturns that provision, the entire law could go down. That's what Republicans need to be thinking about.
Can I just say that if that happens, we actually paid this guy nearly $500,000 to perpetrate a fraud. I want my money back. I mean, seriously, I want my money back. If that's him on tape, and we know it is, and if we took him before the court, as you said, I want my money back. And by the way, Mr. MIT genius couldn't help the administration figure out how to do a website that could register more than 9 people.
Right.
Hello.
Well, what's the point of hauling him up to ask him about that?
Well,
you want to ask him something that testimony under oath could actually be applicable in a court of law. And I would also ask, would those lawyers for the administration have to withdraw their brief?
All right,
that would be huge.
Well, I think the administration would probably say he was one consultant, right? That probably would say he's not the person who made all the ultimate decisions. He was somebody who just, this is his perspective. It's not the perspective of other people. So I don't know if it would work unless you find other people who worked on it, other people who work in the administration, who are willing to admit this. I think he clearly was central, and and it's probably reflective of what people think, but how can you prove that? Right? I mean, you have to be able to prove that other people.
So, Kirsten, do you think anybody should be held accountable based on the words that we heard come out of group?
Yeah, I mean, and it's just another one. This gets so old talking about the media, but, you know, this has not been covered by anybody other than if you just accidentally stumbled onto Fox News, if you usually watch, you know, MSNBC or CNN, I know this is big news to you, you know, because truly it's not getting covered by anybody. And this is huge news.
It's not even in the New York Times.
Yeah, it's really, it's really stunning, you know. This is really big news, and you know sometimes these are gray areas that you can say, well, maybe you can kind of see why this wouldn't get covered.
Yeah, no.
There's no excuse for this.
Do you know how it was uncovered? It was uncovered by one of our stupid private citizen taxpayers who was upset that he was dumped off of his insurance plan, and he decided himself to go and look at tapes and uncovered this.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah, I think he lives with his parents, and he's just viewing all these videos.
I think he should run the New York Times.
I think so. Yeah, and it would be one thing if he had said it one time, but I mean, his tongue slips a lot. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? Like, this is
the administration's probably very nervous on how they handle him. He's like a ticking time bomb. Let's not make him upset. Handle with care. All right, an epic showdown could be shaping up in Congress over immigration. A source tells Fox News that as early as next week, President Obama is planning to announce a 10-part plan to overhaul immigration policy through executive action. The most controversial part calls for expanding deferred action for illegal immigrants who came to the U.S. as children, but also for the parents of American citizens and legal permanent residents. Now, that could allow an upwards of 4.5 million illegal adults with children born in the U.S. to stay right here. But some Republicans want to block that action by tying the president's hands financially with a must-pass spending bill. Among them, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions.
Let's be clear. Immigration officers have told us if this goes through, it will be almost impossible to enforce the law in the future. Let me just say the president has no authority to do this. It's against the law.
All right, Kirsten, I want to go to you on strategy here, because I actually think, as much as I hate this executive order and I don't think it's constitutional, I think that Republicans trying to do this defund strategy is going to be akin to them walking face first into a buzzsaw, because the president likely will win this. That's my take on it. And then Republicans will get painted as not liking Latinos and Latino children, and isn't that the way it's going to go?
Yeah, I think that's right. And if you look at even the Wall Street Journal editorial page, which is very pro-immigration reform, so would really support essentially what Obama's doing plus a lot more. They're sort of arguing you shouldn't do this by executive order because it's going to poison the well with Republicans, and then they're going to be upset and they're not going to want to do anything on immigration reform. And you know what I feel like with that is that, okay, go ahead with that. If that's what you guys want to do, if you want to say we're mad at Obama and we're not going to do anything, have fun never winning an election again. You know, I mean, they can't. This is not an option for them.
I work for
it's not an option for them.
I work for Hispanic. I'm Latina. I work for a Hispanic organization that has been on the forefront of calling for immigration reform. And I have to tell you, what he is doing is not in the best interests of the Latino community. In fact, I think he's willing to do almost anything to not work with the Congress, including screwing over Hispanics in the long term, because this is a temporary measure. It only lasts as long as the president.
Right.
And in the end, what they want is a permanent answer to immigration reform. That's what Hispanics...
Which President Obama wants to do, and the Republicans have not wanted to do.
But remember, when the Republicans with Marco Rubio were working on a legislation that had very good hope for the Dreamers, what did he do? He pulled out from under the rug, enacted DACA, which had unintended consequences, which is this surge. This is going to happen again with this legislation. If we don't do an immigration reform that addresses all of the concerns, we're going to have a surge. And also, we may actually be doing something very dangerous for Latinos, which is he's going to coax them out of the shadows. They're going to be exposed to the law. This could get overturned.
Right, but the only reason it would get overturned is because the Republican would overturn it. Which
it could be overturned in the courts as well.
But it goes back to the point that the Republicans are the problem here. The Rubio plan did not have what needed to be in it to work with Democrats. There wasn't the kind of path to citizenship that needed to exist. Well, look, there have been multiple immigration bills that are very reasonable that George Bush supported, that Republicans on the Hill would not support, that have path to citizenship.
the most powerful members in the House, and Boehner, Paul Ryan, all of them, and about 150 to 100, my husband's a congressman, 150 to 170 congressmen want this to pass.
Let me get Peter and Sandra in here. But Peter, doesn't this also wedge Republicans, as Kirsten brought up? I mean, doesn't the president know that? But he's not really allowing Congress to work this out on their own.
I don't think that the question is, do Republicans want to reform the immigration system? Everybody in Washington talks about how Republicans want to do that. They just don't like amnesty. But the White House is acting surprised that Republicans would balk at basically letting 4.5 million people potentially stay here. 4.5 million people is the size of Louisiana. So if we're going to just let a whole state, a big state-size group of people stay, it's not a surprise that Congress is going to want to maybe just think about this for more than like a week.
It's $1.5 million and Sandra, on the economy, a lot of people worried about jobs.
The timing is very poor when you're still talking about very high real unemployment level in this country. You know, the underemployment level we keep talking about. If you see this happen, you're talking about a lot of jobs that go to, you know, American people that really need them right now.
A lot of union workers, which could be a wedge issue for Democrats. Some on Capitol Hill are calling it a Hail Mary. Democrats are so desperate to save Mary Landrieu's Senate seat in Louisiana, they'll agree finally to a Senate vote on the Keystone Pipeline that they've opposed and delayed all these years. The potential showdown with the White House and why this has Republicans grinning ear to ear. Plus, a modern-day throwdown between two elder statesmen, the friendly ribbing on social media between Presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush that has a lot of folks talking. And right after the show, catch more from the couch on the web. Join us for Outnumbered Overtime by logging on to foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click the Overtime tab and tweet us your questions, comments, what you want to hear us talk more about with Peter Ducey.